This is Jimbo J Tech coming back to you with the second video of this new production tutorial video series on Sonic Academy. In this video, we're going to explore writing the musical essence of your track before you start getting into the nitty-gritty of drums and basses and all those kinds of things. It's a way to create a musical backbone for your song from which everything else can branch out. So let's dive in. All right, today I want to convey to you a way of thinking about a project in such a way that you don't get overwhelmed, especially if you're planning to make a 100-track soaring trance song like this one. You know, if you try and think about, everything that's going to go into making this song and how it's all going to fit together, you might drive yourself a little bit mad. And if you watch some of the earlier quick tips videos on Sonic Academy, you'll know that I did go through a number of different musical approaches for this song before it actually became a trance song. And, since doing this track, something I've gravitated towards doing more is actually mapping out the musical essence of the song first. And the reason that we do that is that the musical essence is the backbone of the whole song. And it's the spine from which everything else sort of branches out. And to sort of have the roots of the song in place can be a really good thing, at the outset, because it sort of makes writing all of these stacks and these melodies and everything a bit easier, because they're all following this much more simple foundation of the song. So I'm going to give you a quick play of what we're going to make in this video. So that is kind of, the heart of the song. It's the musical story of the song as well, and it's a story. It's a little bit sort of it's a pained story, I suppose. It's also a bit dark, but there's also kind of like an atmospheric kind of beauty to it, or at least that's the intention. And it's really told in the sort of words of the sentence that are chords and melodies. And the more that you do music, the better your vocabulary gets with telling these kind of things, telling these kind of stories. So if you took this whole 100-track project and you had to basically make its message so concise that it were just a single note chord progression, it would be this. So even with 100 things going on in the song, that's really the essence of what this song is. It's a 1-5-4-3 chord progression, which being in a minor key, it sort of has this dark atmospheric feel. So moving forward in these videos, I'm going to have the original project, just like I did with the Tiger Lily videos. It's going to be here in the top group, muted out. And so down here, what I've done is I've recreated some of these instruments that I use to create these patterns. So starting with this dark pad, which I think is a good place, I used the Ace synth, which is it's this little Death Star preset. I'll give you a quick play. Oops. There we go. That one. So when I'm picking synth patches, I try to find something close to what I'm already going for, and then I just usually tweak things a bit. So I use this Death Star a lot whenever I need a dark pad. I'll turn off the echo on it. I'll usually turn this chorus down a little bit, make the notes a bit shorter with this release, and I'm going to turn that cutoff up a bit so it's a bit grittier. That's it. So, people are always asking me like how to do chords and chord progressions, and, it's something that people are often not very confident with. And so I always say start small and work your way up. So in this case, we're literally just doing a 1-5-4-3. And I'll probably need to stretch these notes out a bit as well. I can see I absolutely will have to. So it's one of the joys of using Ableton is you can sort of forget what scale you're working at with these notes. So let's give that a play. All right, happy with that. Keeping it super simple, and yeah, when you're constructing the song, you really want to try and go a little bit easy on all the echoes and reverbs that can be built into the patch. Unless they really, really make the song, I recommend switching them off, because constructing the whole song dry is going to make a big difference. So the next thing I did, and a lot of these elements here are using the Arturia Pigments synthesizer. I was actually playing around with this when I made this song because Arturia were very nice and made it free to use throughout the year, you know, while everyone was at home in lockdown. So I was using it for this song, and I've just reactivated it just for like the purposes of these videos. And so this was really just picking like a bass ARP sound. And for this entire section, there was nothing too crazy with like synthesis or anything like that. It was really just picking, you know, patches that I liked and, you know, tweaking them to taste. And I took that bottom note and I just put it up an octave. And so that was sort of born from this. And so the reason that that goes up an octave there is that it saves a little bit of that darkness for later on. So I'm going to give you a quick play of this. So I like the sub frequencies in this and the movement that it brought, but I wasn't really a fan of, you know, it sounded a bit geeky in the top end. So I got rid of those low end frequencies and just a bit of overdrive to give it a bit of push, you know, and you can sort of see it sort of, overdrive sort of uses distortion to push things up in certain frequencies. It's a very useful tool in Ableton. Nice. So we have our root notes of the chords, which is, you know, usually the notes that the bass line will follow if, you know, you're using the same chord progression throughout the song. So we've got at least some, you know, an anchor of like, you know, something, a root note of the chord progression that the chords are following. So once again, using the Pigment synth, this was just like a fun patch that I found. I'll play it for you. Oops, wrong one again. So when you're trying to add notes to a chord, you can always start with the root notes that you've got and you can work it up from there. So you can always take the whole progression and move it up a fifth, and that will automatically give you a 2-note sort of chord. I'm gonna move that up an octave as well, so it's a bit higher in the range. So then basically, if you want to expand chords and have, you know, much more sort of more complicated chords, you can sort of, you know, you can add onto the stack one note at a time until you get the sort of desired result that you're looking for. And it really is a matter of experimentation, or you can really sort of, you know, you can try playing it out on a keyboard first if that you're so inclined, or you can sort of come up with it in your head before you put pen to paper. But I know a lot of people, you know, are quite happy to noodle around with notes. I certainly am. So it really depends on what your style is. So now I have this melody that sort of goes down like that. So the other trick that I tell people a lot is that in minor keys in dance songs, the 4, the 5, and the 7 will go with most of the chords that you put together, the simple chords. So I'm going to add a 4. And by 4, I mean the 4th note of the scale, which in this case is C sharp minor. If you're not too confident with, writing things in unusual keys, you can also write them in C, which is the easiest key, and then you can just transpose it by moving the notes. Gonna add that fifth in there as well. I'm going to add that fourth in there as well. And remember, the 4, 5, and 7 will go with all of your minor chords very nicely in a song like this. It's just a little magic trick that I use in basically every song. And then lastly, I'm going to remove that one note because it's already being represented by the bass line. So I'm going to put that 7 in there for these first two chords. The fact that there are 4 notes in the chords for the first two and then 3 in the second two means that these chords for the first half of this pattern are going to stick out a little bit more and be a little bit more prominent, and then it'll be a little bit darker and more somber in the second half. Right, so that's pretty much keying in those chords. I have a swelling pattern here. I actually couldn't find the preset for this, but basically what I did for this one was got another instance of Pigments. I ran these same notes through it, so I just copied that pattern. I took some low end out of it, and I put a bit of a long reverb on it with this Native Instruments long reverb plugin, which I've been using quite a lot. So that sounds like this. So that's kind of auto-magically added some atmosphere, just an extra atmospheric layer. Same thing here, just a fun patch that I found in the Arturia Pigments synthesizer again. Notice that I'm not doing any crazy synthesis here, and part of the reason for that is that I have, so much going on in this track that it's more about the fusion of fun instruments rather than, crafting individual masterpieces of instruments. So this melody here, was essentially born from these 4 notes, this 4-note pattern from before. And so I made that melody just by shortening those notes and then starting to add a few extra notes in. So that's basically the gist of that. And then for these pianos, I played these in, and I think it's always good to play some stuff in live. Just on the keyboard, or even with Ableton, you can do musical typing with this little button here, just with the computer keyboard. And this is basically just two piano sounds, two different piano instruments. This is a sampled real piano, just one note going into the Ableton Simpler with some low end cut out of it and some reverb. And then this was a DSK the Grand. This is a free plugin. You can go and get it online. Just Google that, DSK the Grand. And it's just a little grand piano with exactly the same parameters dialed in. Just some EQ and some reverb. So there we have it. Now I have a bit of a musical blueprint, and I didn't have this little kalimba enabled, but you heard that at the start. We have a musical blueprint for, sort of the orders that the rest of the parts in the song are going to have to follow in terms of like what they're going to do. So to have that mapped out at the very start can be very helpful. In the next video, we're going to take some of these motifs and start crafting a kick and bass combo to form our groove. So stay tuned for that.